I was in my first year of college. My roommate finally showed up that same day after I had finished unpacking everything into my room and my family had left. I introduced myself as Dan and stuck out my arm for a handshake, but he paused and looked down at my arm as if he didn't know I was the most socially awkward person I had ever met. Initially comprehended, then chuckled, went, "Oh," and shook my palm like a dead fish. I had to ask him his name, because he didn't even tell me when we shook hands that he was Dale. I tried to strike up a conversation, but all he did was answer yes or no's and then awkwardly laugh or smile. After a few minutes, we were both just sitting on our beds, using our laptops without speaking to one another. I was furious and intended to ask to be put with a different roommate because anyone would be better than Dale. I initially assumed Dale was just a really awkward kid, but
I met some of the other kids on my floor.
I quickly discovered that he was much
and they
more
seemed
than
cool,
that.
so that was good.
The first night, after exploring the campus, I returned to my dorm to find Dale still in the same spot. When I left, I asked him what was up, and he didn't respond. So I was surprised to see that it was 9:30. Since I had nothing to do, I went to bed and switched off the lamp on my side of the room. I couldn't actually go to sleep anytime soon, even though Dale was using his laptop until 3 in the morning. When he finally closed it, I fell asleep rather quickly. But an hour later, the blinds in our room were open, and the moonlight that was now creeping in made everything visible, including Dale sitting on the side of his bed staring at me. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and said, "Dale, what the hell are you doing?" He apologized in a whisper and lay down. The following morning, I woke up to discover that Dale had already gotten up, and I felt as though it was the first time he had ever left the room. As my group was passing the school grounds during the orientation, I heard a few students ahead of me ask, "What is that kid doing in there?" I turned to see who they were referring to. Dale was actually sitting in the dirt behind a patch of bushes, rubbing the bark of a tree with his hand. The orientation leader was unaware of this, or else I'm sure she would have said something. I continued walking past without saying anything, eventually telling the two children. When I returned to my dorm, I discovered that the school had found another roommate for me. I left the room that night to meet up with the two kids I had met, and when I returned, Dale was sitting on the desk chair facing the door. He said, "Oh, what's up?" I had overheard that he was my roommate as a way to start a conversation and maybe make some friends. Neither of us really knew if it was appropriate to laugh or not, but we did, and we made plans to get together that evening. Actually, nothing. I sat down on my bed and opened my laptop, discovering that I'd forgotten to lock it. I also discovered that many of my files had been opened and all of my emails had been opened, even though I was very certain I hadn't read them. When I asked Dale if he had snooped through my laptop, he said loudly no, and half a second after I had finished my query, I could read him like a book. When I was out, this weird kid was actually browsing through my computer. I knew he'd done it, but I chose not to confront him. I felt as though all of my clothes had been shifted when I climbed into bed to find my pajamas since I was ready to go to bed. When I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of a zipper, I knew I would be gone forever by tomorrow, so I kept quiet. I turned on the lamp this time and confronted Dell about it, and he played dumb saying, "I think you have my toothbrush by mistake." It was the closest thing to wits he had shown up until then, but I knew he was lying. And I knew something was wrong with him, so I couldn't get physical with him. I met my new roommate the following day, in the same building, and everything went smoothly. On Sunday night, after a good talk with my roommate, who isn't particularly outgoing but is miles superior to Dale, we both turned off the lights and went to bed. For the third consecutive night, I woke up at an odd hour of the night to a strange clicking sound. It wasn't constant, but I would hear it at least twice every 30 seconds. I got up in the hopes of finding something harmless, like a mouse or a heavy bag pressing against a flimsy floorboard. But as I looked around the room, I saw that the sound was actually coming from the other side of the door. The nightlight in the common area was always on, so when I peephole, the person on the other side of our door was looking down, so I couldn't see their face. But now that I was paying attention, I knew the small clicking sounds were coming from the doorknob, and I was certain that they were attempting to unlock the door.
I called the campus police department and they arrived in the common area less than 5 minutes later. Only then did I feel comfortable opening the door. I had a suspicion that the officers were holding Dale in handcuffs, so I told them everything. He was my old roommate, going through my belongings, so I moved dorms, and when he tried to break in, they took him away. I don't know what happened to him after that, but I never saw him again. He was either expelled or suspended for the semester. I survived the rest of my time at university just like everyone else, but the terrifying incident I had with Dale still occasionally replays in my mind.